There we go.
Great. So I am recording now. Great. So as per Mark's question, what can we expect tonight and who are we all? Why don't we get started with introductions and an overview of this presentation. So my name is Anastasia. I've been on here and getting to know some of you as we go along. So I work with the Sierra Student Coalition. We're the youth branch of the Sierra Club. And all of you are joining because you're interested in learning more about Seize the Grid, or you've been somewhat familiar with it before. Seize the Grid is a national youth-led movement for energy justice. So we'll get into that in a couple of minutes. I have some slides that I'll run us through. I'll ask you all to engage, share your reflections as we go along, and I'll give you some time to also think about what this means for you and where you're at, what your context is. Since there's a small group of us, why don't we just do a very quick round of introductions and say your name and where you're calling in from and how you heard about this tonight. So, Jonathan, you want to kick us off?
Sure. I'm Jonathan Roberts. I go to the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, so I'm calling from Wisconsin. I think I heard about this training session from Emma. I think she emailed me about it, and also from Cassie Steiner. She's been contacting some youth about the call. I'm a sophomore here, so I got some time to get some stuff done around here. I'm pretty ambitious. I'm pretty involved in my environmental Oregon campus, so it's a student-run org called SAGE.
Great.
And that's a pretty brief overview.
Thank you. Yeah, so you're connected in with local Sierra Club. That's great.
Yeah.
Thanks. Mark, do you want to introduce yourself and where you're calling in from?
Sure. Mark Gordon, calling in from Oakland, California. I teach high school environmental science. So, of course, looking to see what I can do to get my students engaged. And I'm just learning of it, within the last week. So.
Yes, great. Mark and I have been scheming to bring this to a local high school. So I invited him on tonight to see what it's about. Hayden, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. So, hi, I'm Hayden. I'm calling from Brattleboro, Vermont. I'm currently a member of the Vermont Workers Center, but I just graduated this past fall from Green Mountain College, where I was organizing with the student group there. And we just launched with some other colleges here in Vermont a statewide student organization called the Vermont Student Power Network. And I'm kind of in the process of trying to transition my role in the group to people who are still currently students here in Vermont, as I, move into more work organizing. But I'm kind of calling in, representing that network.
Great, thank you for that. Yeah, I'd be interested to learn more about that later. Great. Fran, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Nice to meet you all. I'm Francisco Mena. I'm a doctor in environmental engineering at the University of Illinois. And I'm always very interested in the campaigns of Sierra Club. So I heard thanks to one of the emails they sent. And I'm really looking forward to hear about the campaign.
Yes. It's so great to have you on, Fran. Thank you for joining.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
And then we have two folks whose mics are not working, so I'm going to invite you to chat in your introduction. We have one whose name is reading Franmar, and then Siobhan. So why don't you two go ahead and start typing into the chat box who you are, where you're calling in from today, and a few words about how you heard about this. And then we'll move to the two folks on the phone. We have 909-379. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Lee Cruz, and I'm calling from San Bernardino, California. I heard about the Seize the Grid campaign through an email that I got, and I'm just interested in knowing how I could get involved with the campaign and what I could do to spread the word here in San Bernardino.
Cool. And did you say your name is Haley? Did I get that right?
It's Gabby.
Oh, Gabby. Thank you. I couldn't hear.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. Great. And then we have one other person on the phone, 608-575. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Kendall. I'm a student at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I'm actually going to be chair of the UW-Madison Sierra Student Coalition for this upcoming year. So it was recommended to me by one of the staff at our local Sierra Club chapter that I join in and learn more about this campaign.
Great. Welcome. Thank you for joining. You and
Thank you.
John both have come to us via Cassie Steiner, more or less.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Welcome. And then Siobhan and Franmar, feel free to type in. Siobhan, great. So if you all have your chat box open, you can press the chat down at the bottom. You'll open that up and you'll see Siobhan says that you are a high school senior in South Mississippi, and you heard about it through an email from the Sierra Club. That's great. Thank you for joining us and learning more.
Wow.
Okay, and we'll wait and see if, feel free to use the chat box throughout this presentation tonight, throughout the whole time we're together tonight. So I'm going to share my screen. And again, bear with me as I, perform this one-woman show. Sometimes sharing my screen and having you all see, so I can see my notes and you all see the slides.
Oh, wow.
It just gets to be something. Okay. I'm gonna try one other thing. So I'm pretty sure you all are seeing my slide. Okay. And are you still seeing my slide? Just double check.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. Let me know at any point if that disappears, because I might click something that brings me somewhere else. So great. So we just introduced ourselves, and thank you all again for joining us tonight. I said this at the beginning as we were joining, but I'll share it again as everyone has joined. Tonight you're on a teaser training or an introductory training to Seize the Grid, which is a youth-led movement for energy justice. And we'll be sharing more about that, obviously, as we go along. And I'm just so excited to have all of you on here. Again, if you have questions or want to engage in the chat box, I welcome that throughout this time. And again, I might not see the chat if I'm navigating a few other things. So, engage with each other and feel free to, call attention to you've said something and I'm not seeing it, so that we are all on the same page. Great. So I'm just really excited about Seize the Grid. I have been a part of Sierra Student Coalition since I was essentially a sophomore in college, so the age of some of you on the phone. And I engaged with Sierra Student Coalition through a campaign to retire on-campus coal plants that are operating on university campuses. And we've come a long way since then. While we still have, a lot of coal to retire and a natural gas industry to slow down and stop, I'm excited to be focusing on stopping fossil fuels via solutions and really putting communities at the center of solutions. With that, here we go. Let's go to the next slide. Oh, and I'm in full screen. Presenter mode. Sorry, y'all. I'm gonna play with this for a second. Presenter view. Okay, great. So can someone read this vision statement out loud for me? This is the vision of the Sierra Student Coalition. We are the National Youth chapter of the Sierra Club. Someone read this for me?
Sure. I can't see all of the words though. Everything on the right side is cut off. I guess I have to close.
Okay.
Okay. I can see it now. The
Great.
Sierra Student Coalition is a network of youth committed to justice and equity for humanity and the environment. We strive for an economic, social, and political transition to a world in which all people may thrive through a changing climate. We believe in humanity as part of a global ecosystem, connected and transforming the institutions that perpetuate unjust exploitation. We act for the wellness of our generation and future generations.
Thank you for reading that.
I hope you could hear it.
Yeah. Any reflections on this? This is open to everyone. What stands out to you in this vision?
Well, I mean, it implies or shows a youth that is conscious of energy issues,
Mm-hmm.
and which is more than the average American may be aware of.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, and so, with this being our vision and all of us on this call, maybe being attentive to something that not all people are paying attention to. We care about energy, or we care about climate, we care about people in our communities, or what happens to the people in our communities and other places across the country, across the world. We care, and we're on this call because we care. And so our vision, we're all collectively working towards a world in which all people may thrive through a changing climate. So let's go on. So I want you to take a minute and think about, what is a dream that you've had for your life? No, I'll go silent here for a second. And I just want to invite you to think about, what is something that you've dreamed of? Maybe it's traveling the world, or maybe you have a family and you're dreaming of, your kids having a beautiful world to inherit. Maybe you're thinking about graduating from high school or college, and you're dreaming about what kind of job you might want to have someday. So just take a second and think about, what is it that you've dreamed of since you were a kid, or even now? So great. As that comes to mind, why don't you start sharing it in the chat box with each other? What is it that you've dreamed of? I'm inviting you to reflect on this because we are told to dream. Since we're kids, we are told to dream. So again, maybe you're thinking about a job you'd love, or someplace you want to travel, or something for your family. We all have dreams that are really important to us. And Seize the Grid is, yes, it is a movement for clean energy, but our vision for change is also much bigger than that. Because our dreams are what give us the motivation to organize, right? Because we're thinking about what is it that we'd love to see in our community in 5 years or 10 years from now? What is it that I'd love to see in my own life? So why don't we just take a look in the chat box and see what people are saying. So Jonathan has shared with us. Jonathan, do you want to speak more to maybe a dream you've had since you were a kid, and what you're thinking about as you say that you want to live a sustainable lifestyle?
Sure. Well, that's a relatively new dream. I could say I kind of have developed that within the last year, so it's not really a childhood thing. But I don't know. As a kid, I always grew up kind of wary of how society really functions. I don't know, I just always had a weird feeling about how the world is put together. So when I talk about living a sustainable lifestyle, I kind of envision not necessarily a off the grid kind of lifestyle, but growing my own food, having my own garden. I would like to provide my own energy, water. You know, I want to live in a way that's not going to impact anyone negatively or take anything away from anyone in the future. That's kind of the gist of it, you know?
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, so you're thinking about low impact, and also I hear you being really active maybe with your hands and getting to just be really engaged in your life in a very physical manner.
Yeah, I think it's important to be grounded with the earth, and I think a lot of people are disconnected with a lot that we are provided for. So
yeah, so that's really important to you, is being in a community where you can be really connected to the earth. Yeah. And I even hear some of that in Mark's vision, you know, for owning a home that has a low impact, and you're getting really creative with solar energy, gray water, you know, vegetation in the yard, growing some of your own food. So I'm seeing some resonance across, you know, what Mark is sharing and what Jonathan is sharing. Fran, do you want to share about your dream for a global climate agreement? That's definitely something this crowd is familiar with, perhaps, but maybe not everyone. So do you want to share more about that?
Sure, certainly. One of the great experiences here, I'm from Chile, by the way, and the reason I came here to study in the US is because in Chile we have very weak regulations regarding the environment. And the Air and Water, Clean Air and Water Act essentially were revolutionary and lead the way for the rest of the world. It does say a lot regarding how smart regulations can truly reform the culture in a certain nation. And I don't see why that experience cannot be expanded towards the climate in general. So in reality, my dream is very practical in a certain way. I think all the science and all the knowledge and all the political know-how is already there, and people are essentially making great efforts to bring all that knowledge together. But most of the challenges that we currently face are more just disagreements in the approaches. It's a lot of very ridiculous.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all of that. I really appreciate you sharing about your journey from Chile and your vision for a climate agreement. What I'm appreciating is your care for a global community, right? And
Oh, certainly.
I also really love how you're saying, you know, we have a lot of the tools and technology. We're finding some disagreement on how to go about getting to this better world that many of us, you know, even people we might at times say are adversaries, you know, we're each trying to make the world a better place. We just have different ideas about it. And so I think what's so powerful about a dream is that what commonalities can we find with each other across our dreams? And then maybe we can make progress in the how after we can first connect on the vision.
You know, the funny thing is that from an engineering point of view, everything is so easy on paper. But when you start talking with people, that's where I see the power of Sierra Club, for instance.
Oh.
That's their expertise, right? How can we bring people together with the same goal?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Thank you. And then Siobhan shared, your current dream is to get out of this small town to somewhere where your voice and your ideas will be heard, because you have great ideas and dreams about this world being a better place. Thank you for sharing that. Feel free to share more with us in the chat box about, you know, where do you dream of going and what do you dream of doing to make this world a better place? What are some of those ideas? Feel free to share with us. So let's keep going. And again, I swear I have the hardest time transitioning slides and making it so that you all can see the full screen and that I can see my notes. So we're gonna just keep playing with this. Great. So we've just talked a lot about what kind of dreams we have, but we're all on this call for a reason. You know, when we wake up in the morning, what we see in the world doesn't really match our dreams. We're struggling to make ends meet, maybe. Maybe you've seen your parents do this, or friends or other members of your family. Or maybe you as a student, you're thinking about student loan debt or finding a good paying job. And will that job be something that you feel really fulfilled by? Many people in maybe our communities or communities that we care deeply about are really grieving ongoing police violence, because we know that police are unjustly targeting people for their skin color, if you are Black and brown. We also know that many people's families are split up by prisons or by borders. And, you know, so with all of this, maybe again, if you are a parent or you're thinking about your own parents, you're thinking, well, are my kids safe and happy in this world? And if you don't have kids, but you've thought about it, or you're maybe an aunt or an uncle, or you have a younger sibling, maybe you wonder, you know, what kind of world are they going to inherit? Do they have a chance at a decent future? And, you know, we hear then every day President Trump speaking about more deportations, more deregulations. We know that there's ongoing violence in many communities. And this reality is really hard. But it's true that we're seeing all of these things. You know, it's scary to see this. But we also know, again, that we have those dreams. We have those dreams, and that's what prompts us to organize. That's what we're organizing for. So we're just going to stay with this truth for another minute and look at the fact that, you know, the 1% continues to gain more money, gain more wealth, as the rest of us, maybe those dreams that we were just discussing, they get a little bit further away, or seemingly further away. So transitioning slides again. Can a couple of folks name for me what you're seeing on this slide? Again, this is the reality that we are facing. So, folks, what are you seeing on this slide, or what is it reminding you of? If you don't know the specific image here and what it is, does it remind you of something that you or someone you love has experienced?
Well, on the bottom right, I believe that's tap water, probably in an environment where they are fracking and the tap water is flammable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
From the pollution that's occurring from fracking.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so drinking water is no longer safe in many places in the country. Yeah, and folks who haven't shared anything yet, please join in this conversation. I'd love to hear from you. You know, what are you seeing on this slide that reminds you of something that you know about with this current energy system we're in?
I think the photos here, speak to two of the takeaways I got from the Sierra Student Coalition's mission that we saw earlier, relating to the fossil fuel industry's impact on our world. One of them being that it's global and disproportionately burdensome globally. Mm-hmm. And so when talking about environmental justice on a global scale, there are very immediate impacts, and that was the other thing is it brings up that, you know, generations currently living, you know, people right now are being affected by climate change through and the fossil fuel extraction industry through you know, extreme weather and pollution of water and, you know, desecration of you know, sacred sites and things like that.
Yes.
I think those are all important points that are here and also in the club's mission.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for sharing all of that. And I appreciate that you're making the connection here that, I mean, that is obviously on the slide and that I didn't say explicitly, but these are the costs of living in a world, in a country where we continue to rely on fossil fuels to power our homes, power our cars. You know, we continue to see oil spills or fracking that's destroying our drinking water. We're seeing more flooding, more wildfires, more drought. I mean, in California, you know, we're kind of familiar with drought, although this year was a strange exception. You know, in Southern California, people are already facing the fact that it is getting harder, and it's going to get even harder to continue to grow food. You know, we see unprecedented storms hitting across the Midwest or the Gulf Coast. You know, in the bottom center, you have a picture of a school bus going by a coal plant. You know, these things are affecting. I appreciate, was that Hayden that was just speaking? I don't have your images up right now. But I appreciate what you were saying, that, you know, this is the cost, and it's affecting many people right now. Oh goodness, I'm putting my computer to sleep. Okay, there we go. I'm back. Great. So again, we're sitting with the truth of what we're facing. Let's put these things together. The wealthiest 1% are benefiting, while many of us are watching our dreams get further out of reach. You know, or facing the challenges, the very, very real challenges of maybe it's losing your home, maybe it's losing access to safe water, maybe it's an impact on your health or your kids' health or your sister's health, your brother's health, whatever it may be. Maybe your parents or you don't know how you pay your utility bill. You know, you're paying a high utility bill while, you know, you also have to pay for groceries. I mean, that's a real balance that many families have to strike, and not always very easily. So we have, you know, people listed out on this page. You know, we have Trump and the Koch brothers. You know, these are just some of the individuals behind this current energy system that we have. And I really just want to make it clear that in our current energy system, we have these large utility companies and fossil fuel companies, you know, and we see banks here too, that are backing up this fossil fuel-based energy system. They're the ones benefiting. The utilities that are investor-owned by individuals like these people on this page who have a lot of money. You know, these utilities are making decisions on behalf of our communities. And that's what makes me excited about Seize the Grid, is that doesn't have to be the case. You know, as we look to what solutions we want, it doesn't have to be the case that these large utility companies or these CEOs of different companies are making the decisions for us. So that kind of gets to this point that if you have a profit-driven approach, well, so far it's not really working for most of us. This image that you're seeing here is from a really great, like 5-6 minute video called "This is what energy democracy looks like." And we're not going to play it here, but I did include the link down in the bottom right corner. I encourage you to watch this video. It's pretty great because it points out what energy democracy is all about. Oh, and if you're not on mute, do you want to go on mute? I hear some background noise.
Okay.
Great, thank you. So we know, you know, from the last couple of slides, profit-driven approaches are not working when it comes to fossil fuels. We can apply the same lesson here to solar and wind. If it's a profit-driven approach by a large company not connected to your family, your community, it's not looking out for your community's best interest. It's looking out for the company's best interest. And so that's why we're talking about energy democracy or community-owned clean energy. You know, communities getting to really democratically control their own energy, keep the profits local. So I'm gonna pause there for a second, and I just want to, because I know that I'm sharing a lot of information. Some of it may be new, some of it may be familiar, like really familiar to you. So I just want to hear from folks, especially if you haven't spoken yet. What's standing out to you so far in what we're talking about? What is this? What are you reflecting on? And again, you can engage in the chat box. But also, please share, you know, with the group. What is it that's standing out to you about everything we've discussed so far?
Well, I guess I'll say something. You know, I think it is almost just seems like a broad overview. A lot of the concepts I'm familiar with remotely. So I wouldn't say that anything really stands out. I like that we're talking about the issue because obviously this is what we're here for. This is what it's all about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. This might be familiar for some of you. Is there anyone on here who's seeing something new out of what we're saying?
Well, this is Mark. I don't know if I'd say completely new, but I think, you know, building health and building wealth will seem to be like on different different approaches. So I can see where that may not be clear. How are we going to build wealth in our communities? Um, you
Yes.
know, so that kind of stands out to me.
Yeah, thank you for raising that. Has that ever occurred to anyone else before? It's definitely a common narrative that we hear from people who are very much invested in our fossil fuel based system. You don't get to have health and wealth. You don't get to have both of these. Has anyone else ever heard that before? Yeah. So, I mean, that's all it is. It's a narrative, right? There are communities across the country right now that are building real solutions, building solar infrastructure that will benefit renters and homeowners alike. And there's communities across the world where there's entire countries in Europe that collectively own wind power, like wind farms. There's an island in Greece where the people came together and they said, no, actually we're no longer going to accept fossil fuels for our island. We're going to focus on building clean energy instead. So there's people across the world that are, and across the country that are looking at, yes, we can do healthy communities and wealthy communities at the same time. We can keep the money in our own communities. And that's what energy democracy is all about. So let's keep going. Community-owned clean energy. Can someone read this out loud for me? Fran, would you like to read this out loud for me?
Sure. Community-owned clean energy and energy democracy. Seize the Grid stands for renewable energy that is locally sourced and locally built. We fight so that all energy sources are owned by and controlled by communities themselves, not the 1% and not the utilities, and enhance community well-being for all community members.
Yeah, thank you. So this is what we mean by community-owned clean energy, and you can actually learn a lot more about this from many different resources that I am happy to send around. This particular stance that we have, I was really inspired by the work of the local Clean Energy Alliance here in Oakland, who has fought for community choice energy programs and are implementing it in different communities in Northern California right now. There is this one writing from one of the directors of that little organization that writes about, not his words, but ours, essentially what it looks like for a community to thrive by choosing community-owned clean energy, and that we can use renewable energy and center on social justice and keep wealth in our communities and foster health at the same time. So let's keep going on here. I'm going to skip this really quick just because I'm building this in other places. Do any of these pictures look familiar? Shout it out if you recognize any of these pictures.
I recognize Gandhi and MLK. The bottom right, I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. Has anyone ever seen the image on the bottom right before?
I don't think so.
So that's a group of young activists standing outside of the Stonewall Inn, which is a famous gay bar in New York, and was the center of like the rise of LGBTQ activism and pushing for LGBTQ rights. So, we've just talked about our dreams. We've talked about the threats to our dreams. we've even raised this question of, wow, is it possible to do health and wealth at the same time? And recognize that that's a narrative that has been handed over to us by, people like our president, or the fossil fuel industry, or big banks, or big utility companies. It's also a familiar narrative that I'm betting many people in these images, have heard before, or something like it. But what's powerful is looking at how people have risen up and built incredibly powerful people-led movements. So I'd love to hear from folks in this group. I'm sure for some of us, organizing history is like what we nerd out about. I'm one of those people. I also recognize that Gandhi and MLK, those are more like household names. And there are many other leaders that, are not just Gandhi and MLK. But I want to hear from folks on this, in this group. Who is a leader, or what is a movement that has inspired you, either present day or or looking back in history? Mm-hmm. So thinking present day or looking back in history, what is a movement that has really inspired you?
If I may say, the ex-president of Uruguay, Pepe Mujica, I think is quite a remarkable story, because he, during the dictatorship in the 70s, he was captured and remained in jail for about 13 years in isolation. Mm-hmm. Eventually went into politics, became president, and was quite revolutionary in the whole nation in itself. Passed legislation to legalize gay marriage, mm-hmm. to regulate the use of marijuana, to mm-hmm. fight eliminate the whole drug war thing, as well as legalize abortion, which in a country that is Catholic is highly controversial. Mm-hmm. So to honestly change the entire mentality of a nation within just a few years, it's quite unheard of. Yeah. And shows that as long as you have the knowledge and you have the momentum, yeah. and enough support from the people, you can bring the change. It just requires careful planification and just hard work at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. You raised a couple of really key points that I want to highlight in a second, but I'd love to hear from other folks. Again, if you haven't shared yet, I encourage you to share what has been inspiring either present day movements that you have seen for justice, or looking throughout history, people or movements that have inspired you.
Well, I know that I'm inspired by the People's Climate Movement.
Would you say more about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I haven't really been a part of a movement before. I know that obviously the civil rights and women's rights and LGBTQ rights and all the major movements we've seen in the past are all very inspiring, and we can look to those for guidance. But if we're talking about today, just in the last couple of weeks, I've attended 2 marches, massive marches where people are uniting together and making a statement that our government needs to acknowledge this issue that we're facing. And it's really inspiring, and it motivates me to see so many people coming together. And I mean, marching in the streets is awesome, but bringing that home is what's really important, and that's what I'm trying to do. And it really gives me a lot of power to see all these people coming together and saying we're all on the same page. It gives me a lot of energy and motivation.
Yeah. Yeah. We have Erica who typed into the chat box the feminist movement. Erica, if your mic is working, do you want to share more about what inspires you about seeing the feminist movement from the beginning and how it has evolved to what it is today?
I'm a little sick and congested right now, so I hope everyone can hear me.
Great. Thank you.
The feminist movement has really inspired me because it's such a long-standing movement where since the beginning, since like the 19th century, women have been advocating for their right to our own body, and even now today that right is being threatened and challenged with the current climate. And I think that seeing how we have been saying these things for years and years and years, and we are still saying them today, it I don't know, it's inspiring at the same time as it is motivating, because it's a fight that we're still fighting, and it's been on my mind.
Yeah. I appreciate that it sounds like you connect really personally to it. That you've shared it's about our bodies. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we'll take one more if there's something someone else wants to share. I know believe me, there are so many incredible movements and revolutions to highlight now. I'll name a couple that have been really inspiring for me, but I do want to hear from other folks.
Well, I just typed, this is Mark, I just typed a message, I'm, in addition to an educator, I'm also a musician, so I'm very influenced by music, and I've been really inspired by the the social political movement that's the foundation of Jamaican reggae music, going back to the 1960s, and ahead of its time in many ways, speaking out against apartheid and against the nuclear arms race, and a lot of these things have been in the music for decades now, that people are just now talking about. So I think there's that's just one source. There's many sources of information out there. It's just kind of who's paying attention to it.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. I'm really appreciating what everyone is bringing up. You're all bringing up different pieces of how we will win, of what it looks like for people to either come together or bring it home or feel inspired by someone or something they're seeing or hearing, or how they make it a really personal issue. I mean, these are all aspects of what Ella Baker and LGBTQ rights activists and Gandhi and MLK all spent so much time formulating for the different movements they were a part of, formulating how do we have these really powerful moments inside of movements, and how do we string those moments together? How do we create the effect and the reality of people coming together, of that feeling of people showing up in the streets, or the march or the rally, or I love, Mark, that you brought up musicians, because and this goes to something that Jonathan was saying, is marches can be inspiring, and they're a lot of fun, absolutely, and they're very powerful to see the number of people coming out. But a march in and of itself it can seem repetitive, maybe if you're used to that kind of tactic, or maybe it's like, well, but what do I do when I go back home? And I'm appreciating also that, because the reason I'm appreciating that is because it leads us to thinking about creative movements. And the reason I got excited about the fact that Mark mentioned music, and I'll just share this one story and then I'll move us on, is that there was a group of young revolutionaries in Serbia under the dictatorship of Slobodan Milosevic. And this group of young people, they were college students, they came together in coffee shops and in, people's houses, and they plotted a revolution that actually overthrew the dictator. It was a nonviolent revolution, a nonviolent people's movement in Serbia. And at this point in time, there had been many marches continually in the largest cities in Serbia. And people were really, really upset with Milosevic's rule, but he was still in power. And so, that's how this group of young people, they kind of ended up coming together. Well, what sparked the next iteration of the movement, and these young people giving birth to what was called Otpor, one of the young college students heard that one of his favorite bands was going to be playing a free show in the town square where he was in school or where he was living. And he showed up in this town square, and sure enough, there were hundreds and hundreds of other people, because this is like a popular band at that time. And the band was also very political. And this was a time when people were living under a dictatorship, and there were armies keeping people in line. And this band started performing a bunch of political messages that were essentially saying to the people, you don't have to stand for this. And it was what inspired this group of young people to start plotting the next iteration of the revolution that eventually overthrew this dictator. And I encourage you all to read more about Otpor and the Serbian Revolution. It's really, really inspiring to see how a group of young people can come together and spark this. And you can look back at, the Black Panthers or MLK or current day Black Lives Matter. There's also a movement for immigrant justice, Kosecha, or the movement for Palestinian rights in Israel, a Jewish solidarity movement called If Not Now. And you can look at all of these movements and see the power of young people not being the only ones to act, but definitely being leaders in these movements and being revolutionaries. And so that can be all of you, can be any one of you. So I love this page. I could talk about this all night. As you can see how excited I am and how excited I am by your stories. Feel free to keep sharing these stories in the chat box. And I'm going to move us on. And I'm going to go until about 6:15 Pacific time, so 15 after whatever time zone you are in. Ooh, and we're back at full screen. So this is what Seize the Grid is seeking to do. We just spent time I got really excited. Hopefully you all were feeling really inspired by the different movements that you were thinking about. Seize the Grid is one part of a larger movement for sure, but we are seeking to also build a network of young people across the country that are acting together for this larger vision of energy justice and energy democracy. So again, that's all of you operating locally in your little, in your communities, in your little pods, I was gonna say, but in your communities, and being in touch with one another and uplifting each other, so that together you're leading this movement. So After all of this, we've talked about our dreams, the threats that we're facing right now. We've talked about what we want. We want community-owned clean energy. We want health and wealth in our communities. We've talked about how we'll do this, people-led movements and this national network. What can you do when you bring it home, like Jonathan said? What can you do? So this is the action I invite you to take. If you've still got time left in your semester, or you're excited to do something over the summer, plan an action with us. Plan an action that is fun, creative. Maybe there's music involved. Maybe there's some like puppet windmill or puppet like oil rig fighting a windmill. I don't know what it will be, but I know that you all have really creative ideas. So I invite you to plan an action. We can give you resources to help you think through this. But just plan something with a couple of friends and have fun with it. Whoever comes to your action, invite them to join you for the next thing that you do. Host a meeting. This could be a potluck. This could be a little training. Maybe you show parts of this video right now. Maybe you show the video that I linked to in this presentation, but just host a time for people to come together. So that's what I ask you to do. It just starts with this. Just one action, just one meeting. And I want you all to click this link if you're at your computer and sign the pledge that you're going to take action. And again, recognizing it's summertime, some of us are also, in finals mode. If planning an action isn't something you see being able to do in the next, couple of weeks, sign the pledge anyway. Sign this pledge and we will keep you engaged in the trainings that we have coming up this summer and fall. You can get in touch with us about hosting your own training. Maybe you want to take this presentation and take the script and take these slides and cut me out of the picture and show it to other students on campus. Then there's a number of possibilities. So just sign this pledge and tell us what you're interested in doing to build this next revolution, to build this next powerful movement, so that one day people look back and they're seeing a picture of all these kids, next to like the next iconic Stonewall Inn, whatever that may be for the movement that we're building. And they're like, hey, there's Jonathan. Hey, there's Fran. Hey, look, there's Mark and, his students. Just sign the pledge and let's get into action together. So that is all I have for tonight. And I will just have us end with any further reflections that you all want to share. We have about 5 minutes. What is it that you are excited about coming away from this webinar tonight?
Just in case, could you share the link on the chat? Because I cannot link on the.
Yeah,
I cannot
thank
link
you.
on the slide. Sorry. Thank you.
No, thank you so much for saying that. So, as you open up the pledge that I just, put in the computer, Mark, thank you. You've signed the pledge at People's Climate March. You're welcome to sign it again since this is our digital copy, but yeah, you've signed the pledge. For other folks, even if you think you've signed this before, maybe you signed it in person, it's helpful for you to sign it now so that we are all on the same page and you can express particular interest in what you'd like to do to engage in Seize the Grid. So with the last couple of minutes while folks are still on, is there anything you're feeling particularly excited by or inspired by that you want to share with the group right now?
Well, I can't remember who said it, but it's like he was saying, he kind of is familiar with most of this, and me too, and most of the students I teach could resonate very well with this, but it's because we have an education program already in place.
Mm-hmm.
It starts with an educated populace. A lot of the crap we're seeing in some of the buildings and the backlash against environmental policies is because there's such a lack of education among the populace. They don't really know, understand the consequences,
Mm-hmm.
So for me, as a teacher, I think, it's very important that people know, and it may not be a formal class like I teach,
Mm-hmm.
it may be a club, environmental club, or, some part of a community group, but it's, awareness. It starts with awareness.
Yeah, agreed. And if you look back throughout history, education was a huge component of the campaigns or the movements, that we showcased here, or the ones that we discussed, or even present day, trainings are education, presentations are education, actions can be educating. So I completely resonate with you, Mark, that it doesn't have to be just in the classroom. It shouldn't be just in the classroom. It should be there too, but it's fun to have it in both settings. Yeah, thank you for that though. Any last reflections? Erica, if you have anything, Hayden, Fran, Max, also feel free to jump in and share anything that's standing out to you. Hayden, you're saying that you're really excited about this focus on community control of energy. Yeah, agreed. A decentralized grid is a crucial strategy for bypassing the fossil fuel industry and reducing emissions, and also has a really huge social and economic benefits. Yes, agreed.
Is there a model on like how to get something like that started? I mean, it seems like a seemingly insurmountable monster to many. In my area, Pacific Gas and Electric. It's like, oh wow, how could you ever go around them? So are there models in place on how communities might start doing this? I know around the country there's different electric and gas companies. Is there like a blueprint for starting this kind of work?
To go back to that question on the inspiring movements, I'm from DC originally, and I want to shout out this amazing organization in DC. It's a Solar United Neighborhoods, and it's a network of solar cooperatives in DC. Different neighborhoods who have gotten together to invest in solar as neighborhoods is started by a DC youth learned about solar and was like, why can't we do that? And their parents were like, it's too expensive to put in our house, whatever. And they're like, well, what if like everybody on the street did it? And they're like, all right, that could work. And they've pooled resources, made it easier for other neighborhoods in DC to do it, and also have done really awesome advocacy and have gotten legislation passed in DC that's made it easier to form these groups. And their website has a lot of really cool resources on how they've done that.
Thanks for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. I love hearing stories like that. And I think I've heard about them in a podcast that I like to geek out on called Local Energy Rules. Check it out if you like podcasts. But I will say one last thing, just as our kind of ending note is Great. So, organizations like DC Solar United Neighborhoods are essential and is an incredible demonstration of communities just saying, we're going to take it into our own hands. We're going to do this. There, you can look up cooperative energy futures in Minneapolis and see what they're up to. You can look at what Local Clean Energy Alliance has done in Oakland through advocacy for community choice programs. I'll end with pulling out two distinctions here. There's building the movement that's pushing for this. And that's a lot of what Seize the Grid focuses on. And we're building the movement. We're engaging people in this, pushing for solutions. And then there is the building part. There is the building of solutions that many different communities and neighborhoods are already taking up the reins on that. We need to be working in tandem with each other. And some of us will gravitate towards, I really want to be building the new. I want to be building solar in my community. And some of us will say, I want to be building the movement that pushes for this. And we need both, and that's what Seize the Grid is about, is building the movement that is pushing for energy democracy. Because sure, clean energy is a conversation right now, but where do we see energy democracy and this emphasis on social and economic benefits for the community being the conversation that is happening nationwide? It's kind of not. It's a very fringe conversation. So Seize the Grid is about making that the dominant narrative, and not only the dominant narrative, but the dominant public opinion is that we should control our own energy. That should be the opinion of environmental organizations, social organizations, social justice organizations, like prioritizing social justice in our energy work. So, and building the movement to push for that. So Seize the Grid is the movement, and we should be partnering with, groups like DC Solar United Neighborhoods, so that we're all moving forward together. So always so much more that could be said. I've kept you over by a couple of minutes than when I said I would. Feel free to email me. You can reply to the seizethegrid@gmail.com address that you all got a reminder email from. If you have my contact information specifically, feel free to follow up with me. But signing the pledge is the best way to engage with Seize the Grid. And I look forward to working with many of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Yeah, good luck, everybody.